Look, I have been working at the Galactic Council's Central Diplomatic Station for approximately 17 cycles now, and I thought I had seen everything. Every bizarre ritual, every strange custom, every incomprehensible biological quirk that the universe had to offer. My name is Krella, and I am what you might call an administrator, though that title does not quite capture the sheer absurdity of my daily responsibilities. I process paperwork, manage diplomatic incidents, and generally try to prevent the various species of our galaxy from starting wars over misunderstood gestures or unfortunate translations. The humans arrived on a Tuesday. Well, it was not technically a Tuesday since Earth's calendar means absolutely nothing out here, but I have started thinking in their time measurements because honestly, they have infected everything with their peculiar way of organizing reality. The ship docked at Base 7, and I remember thinking, oh wonderful, another species that probably considers lethal combat an appropriate greeting. I was not entirely wrong, but I was not entirely right either, and that is the thing about humans that drives me absolutely insane. Ambassador Marcus Webb stepped off that ship like he owned the station, which given human history, he probably thought he did. Tall for his species with dark skin that seemed to absorb the station's lighting, and eyes that looked like they were constantly calculating something vaguely threatening. He wore what I later learned was called a suit, a bizarre arrangement of fabric that served no protective purpose whatsoever, but apparently communicated status. Behind him came 3 security officers, each one moving with that distinctive human walk, the one that says, "Yes, I am made of soft tissue and fragile bones, but I will absolutely ruin your day if you test me." I floated down from my observation platform, my tentacles adjusting the translation collar around my central mass. The humans had sent their biological data ahead, so at least I did not have to worry about accidentally poisoning them with our atmosphere or gravity settings. Small mercy. Ambassador Webb, I said, my translator converting my bioluminescent flashes into something his auditory organs could process. Welcome to Station Harmony. I am an Administrator Krellum. I trust your journey was uneventful. Marcus smiled, and I noted the way his lips pulled back to reveal those bone-white teeth. Predator display. Definitely predator display. Except his file said humans also did this when they were happy, which made absolutely no sense from an evolutionary standpoint. But sure, why not? Smooth sailing. Administrator, he replied, extending his hand in that peculiar gesture they call a handshake. I wrapped a tentacle around it, noting the firm grip and the warmth of his skin. Mammals. They ran hot. These humans like little furnaces wrapped in flesh. Thank you for accommodating us on such short notice. Short notice. Right. The humans had basically announced they were coming whether we liked it or not, and the council had scrambled to prepare because nobody wanted to offend the species that had gone from splitting atoms to splitting spacetime in less than 300 cycles. Of course, I said, carefully extracting my tentacle from his grip. The reception begins in 2 standard hours. I will escort you to your quarters. That was when I heard the sound, a sort of chirping, clicking noise that made my sensory organs retract involuntarily. I turned, and there, being led by Handler Vexus, was the reason I had not slept properly in 3 days. The Rexian cub. Now let me explain something about Rexians. They are, without exaggeration, the most efficient predators in 17 sectors. Adult Rexians stand 4 meters tall, possess 6 limbs, each tipped with retractable claws that can slice through ship hulls, and have a jaw structure that makes them capable of crushing alloy beams. Their homeworld is a nightmare of constant warfare between apex predators, and they only achieved space travel because they literally ran out of things to hunt on their own planet. And this cub, this juvenile barely a cycle old, was already the size of a human and covered in midnight blue scales that rippled with barely contained muscle. His name was Snar. Because of course it was. I said, trying to keep my bioluminescence from flickering with anxiety. Ambassador, I should inform you that we have another new arrival. This is Snarl, the offspring of Matriarch Rex. He is here as part of a cultural exchange program. Marcus looked at Snarl the way I might look at a new datapad. Mildly interested, slightly curious, completely unafraid. This should have been my first warning. Handsome little guy, Marcus said, and I swear on the council charter he actually took a step toward the cube. I would advise maintaining a safe distance, Handler Vexus said, his scales paling with concern. Snarl is well trained, but he is still young, and his hunting instincts are, shall we say, enthusiastic. Oh, I grew up with dogs, Marcus said as if that explained anything. Big ones too. I know how to handle a puppy. A puppy. He called a Rexian cub a puppy. I made a mental note to request hazard pay. The reception hall was decorated in what the cultural committee considered neutral aesthetics, meaning it was a bland mix of every species' idea of pleasant, which resulted in something that pleased absolutely nobody. The humans did not seem to mind. They never seemed to mind anything, really. They just adapted, made jokes, and moved on. Snarl was there too, staying close to handler Vexus, but watching everything with those vertical slit pupils that marked him as a predator. The cub had been remarkably well behaved, all things considered. He had not tried to hunt any of the smaller species, had not challenged anyone to combat, and had only broken 3 decorative pillars while playing. Marcus was speaking with Counselor Thress, a pleasant centaurian who wanted to establish trade routes for human agricultural products. When it happened, Snarl had been circling the room, curious and restless as young predators often are. He approached the human delegation, probably drawn by the smell. Humans apparently smelled like prey to most carnivorous species, which explained so much about their survival instincts, or lack thereof. The cub got too close. Marcus turned, probably to greet him, and his hand moved in a way that Snarl's hunting instincts interpreted as threatening. The cub struck. It was fast, faster than most species could even perceive. Those jaws opened, revealing rows of serrated teeth designed to tear through hide and bone and clamp down on Marcus's forearm. The entire reception hall went silent. I mean absolutely completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every being froze. Because we all knew what this meant. A Rexian, even a juvenile, had attacked a diplomatic representative. This was a cause for war. This was species-level retaliation. This was about to get very, very bad. I was already calculating evacuation routes when Marcus did something that made my neural cluster short-circuit. He laughed. Not a cry of pain. Not a scream of terror. He laughed, this deep rumbling sound that seemed to come from his chest, and said, "Ow, hey buddy, that is attached, you know." Snarl released immediately, stumbling backward with his scales flushing white with fear. The cub knew he had done something wrong. Handler Vexus rushed forward, already babbling apologies, but Marcus just held up his uninjured hand. "It is fine," he said, looking at his arm where the cub's teeth had broken skin. Blood, that distinctively red human blood, was seeping through his suit sleeve. "Just a scratch. He is just a kid." A scratch. A Rexian bite. I floated closer, my sensors trying to process what I was seeing. The wound should have removed his entire arm. The bone should have been powder. Instead there were puncture marks. Deep ones, certainly, but the limb was intact. "You need medical attention," I said, my voice probably climbing several frequencies into panic territory. Immediately. Vexian saliva contains multiple toxins that— "I will be fine," Marcus interrupted, pulling a small cloth from his pocket and pressing it against the wound. "Had worse from my sister's cat. Listen, the little guy did not mean anything by it. No harm done. No harm done. No harm done." The Rexian had just bitten a human ambassador, and he was treating it like a minor inconvenience. And that, right there, was when I realized that everything I thought I knew about threat assessment was about to be completely upended. Dr. Pillex arrived within minutes, her medical kit hovering beside her on anti-grav stabilizers. She was a Korthan, which meant she had 6 eyes and absolutely no patience for stupidity. She took one look at Marcus's arm, then at Snarl, then back at the arm, and her facial membranes rippled in what I recognized as extreme confusion. "You are still conscious," she said flatly. "Yep," Marcus replied, peeling back the cloth to show her the wound. "Hurts a bit though. Probably should clean it out." Pillax scanned the injury with 3 different devices, each one beeping in ways that sounded increasingly confused. "This is impossible. The structural integrity of your skeletal system should have failed. The toxins in Rexian saliva are designed to break down cellular walls in prey species. You should be experiencing complete circulatory collapse right now." Marcus shrugged with his uninjured shoulder. "My immune system is pretty aggressive, probably already fighting off whatever he put in there. Do you have something for the pain, though? Not gonna lie. This stings like hell." "Stings," Pillax repeated, her translator struggling with the emphasis Marcus placed on the word. "You describe a Rexian bite as stinging." "Well, yeah," Marcus said, wincing slightly as she began cleaning the wound. "I mean, it is not pleasant, but it is not like he got me with those back teeth. Those look nasty. This was more of a warning nip. A warning nip." I watched as Pillax applied a coagulant that human biology apparently accepted without rejection. which seemed to surprise her more than the injury itself. She wrapped the arm in a synthetic bandage, shaking her head the entire time. "Your species' physiology makes no sense," she muttered. "Your bones are reinforced with a calcium phosphate matrix that is denser than species twice your size. Your blood clots almost immediately upon exposure to air. Your pain tolerance is frankly disturbing, and your regenerative capabilities are going to require significant study." "We heal fast," Marcus agreed. "Perks of being stubborn, I guess." While the doctor worked, I noticed Snarl. The cub had retreated to the far corner of the hall, his scales still bleached white with terror, and he was making these small, keening sounds that I had never heard a Rexian produce. Handler Vexus was beside him, speaking in low, urgent tones, but the cub was not responding. He was crying. The apex predator was crying. Marcus noticed too. He pulled his arm away from Pillix, who protested loudly and started walking toward Snarl. Every being in the room tensed. The human security team moved to follow, but Marcus waved them off. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, crouching down when he got close to the cub. This put him at eye level with Snarl, which seemed like a spectacularly bad idea given what had just happened. "You okay, buddy?" Snarl's eyes, those huge amber eyes with vertical slits, focused on Marcus with something that looked heartbreakingly like guilt. The cub tried to make himself smaller, tucking his limbs close to his body, which was difficult given his size. "I hurt you," Snarl said, his translator rendering his clicks and growls into standard speech. "I hurt the human. Mother will be ashamed. The council will send me away. I did not mean to. I promise. I did not mean to." The cub was spiraling into a full panic attack, his breathing rapid and his scales flickering between white and dark blue. Marcus did something that made my neural cluster nearly shut down from shock. He reached out and placed his injured arm on Snarl's scaled head. Touched him. Deliberately. With the arm that had just been bitten. Hey, it is okay," Marcus said, his voice taking on a tone I had heard humans use with their young. Gentle, reassuring, calm. "You did not hurt me." "Well, you did, but not badly. I surprised you, right? You got startled, and you reacted. That is okay. That is natural. But I bit you." Snarl whimpered. And yes, that was definitely a whimper coming from a species that could reduce most beings to component atoms. Brexians do not bite diplomats. We do not bite friends. "I am sorry, I am so sorry." "I know you are," Marcus said. And then, because humans are apparently incapable of basic self-preservation, he pulled the massive predator cub into something resembling a hug. "I forgive you. You are just a kid. Kids make mistakes. I made plenty when I was your age. I need to explain something about Rexians and why this entire scene was causing me to question everything I thought I understood about the universe. 3 cycles ago, a Rexian hunting party accidentally wandered into Pelian territory. The Pelians are a peaceful species, herbivores, completely non-threatening. They tried to establish communication. The Rexians, operating on pure instinct, killed 17 Pelians before the situation was contained. It took 2 years of negotiations and 3 metric tons of precious metals to prevent a sector-wide conflict. 2 cycles ago, a single adult Rexian escaped containment on a trading station. The casualty count reached 43 before security managed to subdue it with weapons that were technically banned by the council charter. The station had to be evacuated and decontaminated. 1 cycle ago, the council officially classified Rexians as Category 5 hazards, requiring constant supervision and multiple containment protocols whenever they left their homeworld. The vote was unanimous. Rexians were dangerous, period. End of discussion. And here was Marcus Webb, human ambassador, bleeding from a Rexian bite, hugging the creature that attacked him and telling it everything was fine. Counselor Thress floated over to me, her crystalline structure refracting the hall's lights into nervous patterns. "Pelham," she said quietly, "is the human experiencing some form of neurological damage? Should we sedate him for his own safety?" "I honestly have no idea," I admitted. His medical files indicated normal psychological function, but clearly something is very wrong here. "Nothing is wrong," came a voice beside us. One of Marcus's security officers, a woman named Officer Chen, had apparently been eavesdropping. She was shorter than the ambassador, with black hair pulled into a tight configuration and a facial expression that suggested she found our confusion amusing. "The ambassador is fine," the kid apologized. "It is handled." "It bit him," Thress said, her voice climbing several octaves. "A Rexian bit him, and he is treating it like a social faux pas." Officer Chen smiled. That same predator display that humans insisted meant happiness. My neighbor's kid bit me once during a playdate, broke skin and everything. Kids do that sometimes when they are scared or overstimulated. You correct them. They apologize, everybody moves on. Your species allows its young to engage in combat. I asked, fascinated despite my horror. It is not combat, Chen said, laughing. It is just kids being kids. They do not have impulse control yet. You teach them. They learn. It is fine. It was not fine. Nothing about this was fine. But Marcus was still holding Snarl, who had stopped whimpering and was now making a completely different sound. Something like a purr, mixed with a rumble. The cub's scales had returned to their normal midnight blue, and he was leaning into the human's embrace like Marcus was not made of fragile tissue that could be shredded with minimal effort. Feel better? Marcus asked. Yes, Snarl said, his voice small. You really forgive me? Absolutely, Marcus said. But maybe next time, just use words when something scares you, okay? Your teeth are sharp. Okay, Snarl agreed. I promise. I will use words. Androvexus looked like he might collapse from relief. Ambassador Webb, I cannot express how grateful I am for your understanding. The matriarch will hear of your mercy. This will not be forgotten. Seriously, it is no big deal, Marcus said, standing up and wincing slightly. Though I might need Pelex to give me something stronger for the pain. This is starting to throb, because you have a Rexian bite on your arm. Pelex shouted from across the room. A Rexian bite that you have been ignoring while you comfort your attacker. Human biology is insane, but your psychology is worse. The reception attempted to resume, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Every species representative was now watching, Marcus with a mixture of fear, confusion, and morbid curiosity. I found myself drifting between conversations, listening to beings try to process what they had just witnessed. My cousin works on a human colony ship, a Drellian merchant was saying to a group of Zentari traders. She said humans keep predators as companions, on purpose, in their homes, with their offspring. That cannot be true, one of the Zentari replied, their antennae twitching skeptically. It is absolutely true, the Drellian insisted. They call them pets, domesticated predators that they feed and shelter and treat like family members. Some of these pets have jaws that could easily kill a human child, and they just let them coexist. I drifted closer to another conversation where Counselor Mrek, a Havarian diplomat, was speaking with genuine distress. I reviewed the human cultural files after their application to the council was approved. Do you know what they do for entertainment? They intentionally place themselves in dangerous situations. They throw themselves from aircraft with fabric parachutes. They scale vertical rock formations without safety equipment. They race vehicles at speeds that would be lethal if anything went wrong. Why? Someone asked. For fun, Rak said, his breathing spiracles flaring. They do it for fun. They call it adrenaline sports. They have a biological reward system that activates when they are in danger, and they have culturally developed hundreds of ways to trigger it. I was starting to understand something, and it was making my sensory organs ache. Humans were not fearless. That would almost make sense. Some kind of neurological deficiency that prevented fear response. No. Humans felt fear. They just did not let it stop them from doing anything. They acknowledged danger, calculated risks, and then did the dangerous thing anyway because they decided it was worthwhile. That was so much worse than fearlessness. That was choice. That was deliberate. Officer Chen found me floating near the refreshment station, probably looking as disturbed as my biology allowed. You okay, Administrator? I am attempting to process the fact that your species might be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy and you hide it behind smiles and handshakes and mercy. She considered this, then nodded. Yeah, that is fair. But here is the thing, Kralm. We are dangerous, sure. Everything from Earth is dangerous. But we are also adaptable, social, and surprisingly compassionate when given the chance. Marcus could have demanded Snarl be removed, punished, maybe even euthanized. But he looked at a scared kid and decided mercy was more important than revenge. That is pretty human too. I watched Marcus across the room. He was showing Snarl something on a datapad, the cub leaning close with fascination, completely comfortable now. The human's injured arm was still wrapped in bandages, but he was using it normally, seemingly unbothered by the fact that he had been bitten by one of the galaxy's apex predators less than an hour ago. Your species is going to fundamentally change the council, I said. Probably. Chen agreed. But hey, at least it will not be boring. That was definitely true. With humans around, boring was officially extinct. The council called an emergency session 3 days after the incident. Not because they wanted to punish Snarl, thankfully, but because they needed to understand what had happened. More specifically, they needed to understand why Marcus was still alive, and why he seemed completely unconcerned about the entire situation. I attended as the official witness, floating near the back of the chamber while various representatives argued about human psychology, threat assessment, and whether we needed to completely revise our understanding of predator-prey dynamics. Marcus sat in the center of the chamber, looking remarkably relaxed for someone who was essentially on trial by curiosity. Snarl was there too, because the cub had refused to leave Marcus's side since the bite, and Handler Vexus had given up trying to separate them. Counselor Rivrex, a Manthari with more academic credentials than sense, stood to address Marcus directly. Ambassador Webb, we have reviewed your medical files extensively. Your species evolved on a planet that you classify as a death world, correct? That is what the xenobiologist called it. Yes, Marcus confirmed, though we just call it home. Your planet has weather systems capable of destroying settlements, seismic activity that can reshape continents, and predators that hunted your ancestors for millions of years. Ivrex continued, yet your species not only survived but thrived. We need to understand how. More importantly, we need to understand why you showed mercy to a creature that attacked you. Marcus leaned back in his chair and I noticed Snarl pressing closer to his leg, the cub's scales rippling with anxiety. The human reached down absently and placed his hand on Snarl's head, a gesture so casual it was clear he was not even thinking about it. Okay, so here is the thing about Earth, Marcus began. Everything there is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the water in some places. Humans did not become the dominant species because we were the strongest or the fastest or had the best natural weapons. We became dominant because we learned to adapt, to cooperate, and, yeah, to make friends with things that probably should have eaten us. He paused, collecting his thoughts while the entire council chamber waited in silence. About 15,000 years ago, give or take, some humans looked at wolves. You know, pack predators with teeth and claws and hunting instincts, and thought, hey, what if we shared our food with them? Those wolves became dogs. Now we have hundreds of breeds, from tiny ones that fit in your hand, to massive ones that weigh as much as a human. They live in our homes, sleep in our beds, play with our children. My family had 3 growing up. Counselor Rex breathing spiracles flared in distress. You allowed predators near your offspring? They were not predators anymore, Marcus explained patiently. Well, they were, but they were our predators. They protected us. They helped us hunt. They warned us of danger. We evolved together. Dogs literally changed their facial structure over generations to communicate better with humans. They look at us the way wolves never did. It is called domestication, and we got really good at it. Dogs are not the only example, Officer Chen added from her position near the chamber entrance. We have cats, which are obligate carnivores that hunt for sport. We have horses, which are prey animals we convince to let us ride on their backs. Some humans keep snakes, lizards, spiders, even insects as companions. There is a whole subset of humans who rescue wild animals and rehabilitate them. Rescue? Thress asked weakly. You mean you deliberately seek out dangerous animals that are injured or distressed? Well, yeah, Marcus said. If something is hurt, you help it. That is just basic decency. My aunt runs a wildlife sanctuary. She has raised bear cubs, treated injured wolves, even helped relocate a family of cougars once. Big cats. Apex predators on Earth. She bottle-fed the cubs and taught them to hunt so they could return to the wild. The chamber erupted in what I can only describe as polite chaos. Representatives talking over each other, translators struggling to keep up. Everyone trying to process the idea that humans voluntarily interacted with creatures that could kill them. But your young Ivrex pressed, clearly disturbed. Surely you protect your offspring from danger. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. And I saw several council members recoil. Oh, we try. But human kids are basically indestructible. They fall out of trees, crash their transport bikes, break bones, get bit by things, and they just heal up and do it again. It is part of growing up. You learn by doing, even if doing sometimes means getting hurt. He gestured to his bandaged arm. When I was 8, my neighbor's dog bit me. Not as bad as this, but still broke skin. You know what happened? My parents cleaned it, made sure I was okay, and then explained that I had scared the dog by approaching too fast. I learned, the dog learned. We became best friends after that. His name was Rocky. I still miss that dog. You befriended the creature that injured you, I said, speaking up from my position. It was not a question, more of a statement of disbelief. He did not mean to hurt me, Marcus said simply. Just like Snarl did not mean to hurt me. They were scared, they reacted on instinct, and then they felt bad about it. How is that different from any other social interaction that goes wrong? You apologize, you forgive, you move forward. Snarl made a small sound, something between a whimper and a chirp. Marcus looked down at him, and the expression on the human's face was something I had trouble quantifying. Affection, certainly. Protectiveness. Fondness. Besides, Marcus continued, look at him. He's just a kid. Yeah, he has got teeth and claws and could probably tear through hull plating if he wanted to, but he is also curious, playful, and learning how to exist in a society that is very different from his homeworld. He made a mistake. Kids make mistakes. That is how they learn. On Earth, children engage in what you call play fighting. Counselor Ivrek said, reading from a datapad. They physically grapple with each other, sometimes causing minor injuries, and this is considered normal development? Yep, Marcus confirmed. Roughhousing, we call it. Kids push boundaries, test limits, figure out how strong they are and how to control it. Some cultures have formal martial arts training starting at age 5 or 6. You learn to take hits, give hits, and most importantly, when to stop. Chen spoke up again. My nephew is 4. Last month he tried to fight a goose. Got bit on the hand. Cried for 5 minutes, then wanted to go back and try again. We had to explain that geese are mean and you should leave them alone. He learned. That is childhood. A goose, Mick repeated faintly. What is a goose? Aggressive waterfowl, Chen said cheerfully. Terrible animals. Beautiful but terrible. They guard their nests by attacking anything that gets close. Humans still keep them as pets sometimes. Over the next hour, Marcus explained Earth's ecosystem in detail that made several council members request medical attention. He talked about sharks, ocean predators with rows of teeth that some humans swam with for research and recreation. He mentioned bears, massive omnivores that occasionally wandered into human settlements, and how most encounters ended with humans just making noise until the bear left. He described something called Australia, which sounded like a concentrated nightmare continent where everything was venomous, and yet millions of humans lived there happily. He mentioned crocodiles, ambush predators that could death roll prey underwater, and how humans had learned to coexist with them through respect and careful management. We have zoos, Marcus said, places where we keep dangerous animals so people can observe them safely. Educational facilities. Children visit them on field trips. They stand meters away from creatures that could kill them easily, separated only by barriers, and they learn about biology, ecology, conservation. Why? I asked, genuinely confused. Why would you want your offspring to observe things that could harm them? Because understanding something is the first step to respecting it, Marcus said. Fear without understanding is just terror. But if you learn about something, understand why it behaves the way it does, you can make informed decisions. You can appreciate it without being paralyzed by fear. Snarl had fallen asleep at some point during Marcus's explanation, his large body curled against the human's chair, breathing slowly and deeply. Marcus kept one hand on the cub's scales, an unconscious gesture of comfort and connection. The thing about humans, Marcus said quietly, is that we spent millions of years being prey. We were not always at the top of the food chain. We got hunted, killed, eaten. But we learned, adapted, invented tools and fire and weapons. We turned the tables. And then, instead of exterminating everything that threatened us, we decided some of them were worth keeping around, worth protecting, worth loving. He looked down at Snarl with unmistakable affection. This cub is one of the most dangerous creatures I have ever met. But he is also smart, emotional, and capable of remorse. He apologized, genuinely apologized. That tells me he has got the capacity for growth, for change. So yeah, he bit me. He also felt terrible about it. That is the foundation of friendship right there. The council chamber was quiet for a long moment. I found myself processing something profound and deeply unsettling. Humans were not dangerous because they were fearless. They were dangerous because they looked at fear, acknowledged it, and then decided it was not going to stop them from doing what they thought was right. They had turned predators into companions through patience and food. They had survived a death world by being more stubborn than everything trying to kill them. And now they were out in the galaxy extending that same bizarre philosophy to alien species. We are going to have to rewrite every protocol, Thress said softly beside me. Yes, I agreed. Yes, we are. Marcus stayed on the station for 3 more weeks. During that time, Snarl followed him everywhere. The cub learned to moderate his strength, to play gently, to communicate with words instead of instinct. Marcus taught him card games, introduced him to human music, which Snarl found fascinating, and even started teaching him basic Earth languages. I watched them together constantly, taking notes, trying to understand the mechanism behind this impossible friendship. What I realized was simple and terrifying. Humans did not see Snarl as a threat. They saw potential. They saw a person. That was humanity's real power, not their durability or their adaptability or their ridiculous pain tolerance. It was their ability to look at something alien and dangerous and see a friend waiting to happen. The galaxy was going to change. The Council was going to change. We had spent millennia building walls between species, establishing categories and protocols and safety measures. Humans were going to ignore all of that and make friends anyway. And somehow, against all logic and reason, it was going to work. Because if a human could turn a Rexian cub into a companion through nothing but patience and kindness, what else were they capable of? I filed my reports, updated my observations, and wondered what the universe was going to look like in 100 years. Different. Certainly. Probably chaotic. Definitely more interesting. The humans had arrived, and they were bringing their impossible philosophy of befriending danger with them. The Council could either adapt or get left behind. 6 weeks later, I found myself reviewing the updated Council protocols while watching Marcus Webb walk through the station's gardens with Snarl trotting beside him like an oversized, scaly dog. The cub had grown noticeably in that short time, now nearly matching Marcus in height when on all 6 limbs, but he stayed close to the human with an almost embarrassing devotion. "Fetch," Marcus called, throwing a magnetic sphere across the garden. Snarl launched himself after it with terrifying speed, his claws tearing up the decorative ground cover that the maintenance crew had just replaced for the 3rd time this week. I pulled up the new regulations on my datapad, reading through amendments that still made me question reality. Section 7, subsection 12 now read, "Human personnel are authorized to interact with Category 5 hazard species without standard containment protocols, provided they sign a waiver acknowledging that the Council cannot be held responsible for injuries resulting from what humans call poor life choices." The legal team had fought that wording for 2 weeks. The humans had insisted. They won. Dr. Pillax floated up beside me, her medical scanner trained on Marcus. "His bite wound healed completely in 11 days, she said, still sounding offended by this fact. 11 days. Most species would require regenerative therapy for months. Humans just slap a bandage on it and keep going. "How is your research paper coming along?" I asked. "I have submitted 3 papers on human biology to the Galactic Medical Journal," she said. "They keep rejecting them because the reviewers think I am fabricating data. Nobody believes that a species can be simultaneously fragile and incredibly durable. It defies classification." Snarl returned with the sphere, dropping it at Marcus's feet and making that rumbling purr sound that apparently meant happiness in Rexian. Marcus scratched behind the cub's head ridges, right where the scales met in protective plates, and Snarl's eyes half closed in contentment. "Good boy," Marcus said. "Who is a terrifying apex predator?" "You are." "Yes, you are." Counselor Thress materialized beside us, her crystalline form refracting anxiety. "Ambassador Webb has submitted a formal request," she said quietly. "He wants to adopt Snarl, legally, under human custody laws." "Of course he does," I said, because at this point nothing surprised me anymore. "What did the matriarch say?" She said, and I quote, "If the human is foolish enough to want a Rexian adolescent destroying his dwelling, he may have my blessing," Thress replied. She also sent 17 legal documents, ensuring that if Snarl injures anyone, the humans accept full responsibility. Naturally, I watched Marcus and Snarl play for a few more minutes. This bizarre friendship that should not exist but somehow worked perfectly. The human had taught the cub basic commands in both English and Standard. Snarl had taught Marcus some Vrexian hunting calls, which Marcus used to summon the cub from across the station, much to everyone's ongoing terror. Officer Chen had told me something interesting last week. Apparently, back on Earth, humans had a long history of befriending dangerous creatures. They had taken wolves, literal pack predators, and turned them into companions over thousands of years. They kept reptiles that could kill them as pets. They swam with creatures that had multiple rows of teeth, and called it recreation. "They are collectors," Chen had explained. "Humans see something dangerous and beautiful, and we think, I want to be friends with that." It is probably a survival mechanism gone weird, but it has worked out okay so far. Worked out okay. That was the human assessment of 10,000 years of coexisting with things that wanted to eat them. The council had issued 17 new guidelines specifically addressing human behavior. My favorite was Section 23. Humans should be discouraged from attempting to domesticate, befriend, or adopt any species classified as Category 4 or above, though enforcement of this guideline is acknowledged to be essentially impossible. Marcus threw the sphere again. Snarl caught it mid-air this time, his jaws snapping shut with enough force to dent the metal. He brought it back gently though, careful not to damage it beyond use, because Marcus had taught him the concept of playing nice. A Rexian. Playing nice. Because a human asked him to. I updated my personal logs, adding another entry to my growing file titled Things Humans Have Done That Should Be Impossible. It was my longest file by significant margin. Administrator Krelm, Marcus called, waving me over. Come meet Snarl properly. He wants to apologize again. I have been teaching him formal diplomatic greetings. I floated over cautiously. Snarl sat back on his haunches, tucked his claws inward, and lowered his head in what I recognized as a submissive posture. Administrator Krelm, the cub said carefully. I apologize for my previous behavior. I hope we can establish peaceful relations. Apology accepted, I said, because what else could I say? Snarl brightened immediately, his scales shifting to a pleased blue-green. Marcus says I can visit Earth someday. He says they have something called dogs that I would like. Of course he does, I muttered. Marcus grinned. That disturbing display of teeth that I had learned actually meant he was happy. What can I say? I have always wanted a dog. Just ended up with a slightly more exotic version. Slightly more exotic. A Category 5 hazard species that could theoretically depopulate a small station. Slightly more exotic. I filed my report, updated the protocols, and watched the human and the Rexian walk away together, already planning whatever chaos they would unleash next. The galaxy had survived for millions of cycles before humans arrived. We had established order, created systems, developed careful rules for interspecies interaction. And then Earth sent us Marcus Webb, a man who got bitten by a predator and decided the appropriate response was adoption. Honestly, I was starting to think humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their durability or even their bizarre pain tolerance. It was their absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible, combined with their baffling instinct to befriend everything that tried to kill them. The council would adapt. We had no choice. The humans were here and they were bringing their pets. I added one final note to my log. Request immediate increase to station insurance coverage. The humans are planning a cultural exchange program, and I have seen their definition of safe animals suitable for display. We are going to need it. Snarl's happy roar echoed through the gardens, followed by Marcus's laughter. Somewhere, the universe's carefully established order was weeping, but honestly it was probably overdue for disruption anyway. At least it would not be boring. Chen had been right about that much. The humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. May the council have mercy on us all. Here was hope for the rest of us too.